This call is now being recorded. Then, sorry, and just for everyone's reference, yes, we are recording this call so that we can share this link with you guys afterwards, so that if you wanted to reference anything or go back on anything, you'd be able to do that. So the most important part of this part was that once it came time to engage with the client, needed to get him to enable us to sit at the dining room table, not stand in the driveway to have the discussion or sit in his lounge or anywhere else. But the dining room table was the most important thing, because all important decisions in a family, and solar is an important decision to buy, is done at the dining room table. So if the guy didn't want to sit down and he didn't have time, I'd immediately say, well, it's really important what we've got to go through. If you haven't got time or 10 minutes or an hour, because this takes normally about an hour to go through with the client, then I'll come back later. So the whole thing was to get that seat at the table and to engage with the client at that point. So once sitting down with the client, the main thing was to ask him the basic question of what does he want from his solar power. So what I've got at the moment is Cherie is sitting here to the side of me, and she's going to be our dummy client for today. So I'm just going to run through with Cherie as if she was the client. She just recently joined us on the marketing side. We did this with her last week, so we have done one run through before. So the main important question, and I'll jump through to Cherie, is to ask you, you've obviously reached out to us, you're interested in solar power. So what is it that you would like to do with your solar power?
Well, I mean, I would just like to save money on Eskom. At the end of the day, I would love it to be completely independent from Eskom.
Okay. And is there anything else that you want from your solar power?
I want a clean pool.
You want a clean pool?
Yeah.
So in essence, you're looking to save money. So you want money saving solar. And now let's start taking notes for the client. So you'd like money saving solar, you'd like a clean pool, and anything else that solar would come from you.
I don't know, I just want to make my family aware of electricity. And
so energy aware family, so it's family education. And for energy, anything else?
No, that's all I can think of.
So if the power goes off and the grid goes off, you're quite happy to be sitting without electricity then?
No, I want to be independent from Eskom.
You want to be independent? So in essence, the word that I would use is that you're looking for power security.
Yes.
Okay. So let me add that to our list. And about how much do you spend a month on electricity?
About 2.5.
Okay. And I saw from the photographs that you sent me that that your house is single phase.
Yes.
Yeah. You didn't know what single phase was, but
now I do.
Now you know. Okay, cool. All right. So the one of the key factors here is we're just asking some questions, finding out what the client needs, and driving that through. There is a driver on the word security. So security is a very, very key word when we are making purchases. We are 3 to 4 times more likely to make a purchase for security. So if you have a look at how many people have solar, how many people versus have electric fences, how many people have alarms versus electric fences, how many people take vitamin pills, anything that has security. So a great example of that is, I want a fantastic new car. So I rush out to Volvo and I find this whopping car that does 0 to 100 in 3.4 seconds, and I'm really excited to buy it. And then I've got to go home and sell the idea to my wife. And I don't tell her about the 3.4 seconds to 100. I tell her about the 19 airbags and all the collision avoidance and everything that's packed into the car. So the car industry is a great forerunner on using security to drive sales, to get the wives who typically look after the family security to agree to the purchase. So hence I sort of said, well, in solar, what kind of security does it give us? Obviously, it gives us the power security. So I'm wedging that word into the conversation. So the next question that I wanted to ask you, Cherie, is about what percentage of your bill would you like to potentially save?
Well, I mean, initially 100%, but after speaking to you.
Well, you're going to go with 100%.
Yeah.
So a lot of clients are going to say, yes, they'd like to save their whole electricity bill. And normally this is what I would tell them is that if you want to, the first 80% of your bill is hypothetically going to cost you, 150 to 200,000 Rand. The next 10% to get to 90% is potentially going to cost you another 200,000 Rand. And the next 5%, another 200,000. And the last 5%, if you imagine an off-grid yacht, it has, solar, a wind turbine, a 2 Yanmar engines that have generators, a diesel generator, and then you're going to have to spend another 1 million Rand to be completely off-grid. So once I've kind of run through a scenario like that, the numbers aren't so important, but just to create the principle, about what percentage would you like to save?
Well, 80%.
About 80% of your bill. So these factors are really key to be asking the client, because when we reference back to the client, they've now given their word on what they're trying to achieve. So in essence, they're putting their bits on the block. And the whole thing here is not to actually trick a client. The point is to, sorry, I'm having some, let me just zoom out a bit. I'm having some finger trouble. Okay, that should do it. Okay, so you'd like to save about 80% of your electricity bill.
Yes.
So I just want to take you through some basic concepts in solar power. So this is a Cape Town example. You guys will have it different in Johannesburg with your own numbers, and we will share the spreadsheet with you guys. You can adjust it accordingly. Is that for every kilowatt of solar that we install on your roof, we produce 1 kilowatt hour of power. So mostly clients don't know what a kilowatt hour of power is, but they are aware of what units are in a prepaid meter. So a kilowatt hour then is a unit of electricity. So for every 2 panels that you place on your roof, we would in essence have a kilowatt of solar on average, or 1.2 depending on the type of panels at the moment. And that in the Cape Town sense is going to produce around 4.4 kilowatt hours per day.
Okay.
So if we have a look at your bill. Sorry, somebody else is on my sheet. Let me just refresh it. There we go. Okay. So then what it is here is I have an example below. The challenge is that in summer months, we have what I like to refer to as solar salesman weather. We produce a truckload of abundant power. And during the summer months, we have so much power that we don't know what to do with it. But the real challenge is Cape Town has a very, very long winter. And you'll see that in winter, we produce around 1/3 the amount of power than we do in summer. Okay. So in Cape Town, typically 6.6 or up to 6 or 6.5 kilowatt hours per day. And in winter, around 2.2. So if we just say that you have about a 2,500 Rand spend, and I increase this hypothetically to 10 panels, you will see then it's going to produce an average of 2,800 Rand a month worth of power. Okay. So what we've done with Cherie here is we have a little average kilowatt hour rate calculator in the back. So in essence, it's going to take the first 600 kilowatt hours that you buy are typically cheaper, so they weighted less. Anything after 600 kilowatt hours, it's going to give us a higher rate. So if we have around 900 kilowatt hours a month or 800 kilowatt hours a month, it's going to give us your average rate of what you're paying. And that rate we typically take across and we pop into our calculation field here. So the numbers aren't so specific in this, but if you're having a specific client, you can get nitty-gritty, but mostly for this was just a vague idea. So the challenge that we have is, in essence, in the winter months. In the winter months, 10 panels are going to produce a third of the solar power that they're going to do in summer. And we can see that reflected in the Rand value. So you can see that we have 1,400 as opposed to 2,800 Rand, a great reduction. And in the winter months, typically our tumble dryers come on, our heaters come on, everything runs longer. And we use 30 to 50% more power in the depths of winter than we do in summer.
Sure.
So if I asked you, your bill would then go up 30%, so 30, 35%, so it would go from 2.5 to 3, or up, or 2.5 to 3.5, in really bad months. Would you be happy with 1,000 odd Rand saving in the middle of winter on your bill?
I mean, I would want a little bit more.
You'd like a bit more. So how much more? So we're targeting that average of 80%.
Okay. So I'm saving 1,000 Rand.
Yeah. And you're going to pay another 2.5.
Yeah.
So your bill's just going to be 2.5 in winter.
Okay.
So you're happy with that?
No.
No. Okay. So what would you like your bill to be in winter?
Well, then a 1.5.
1.5. So what we're doing now is we're showing the customer the difference. So in essence, if we change it to 16 panels, hypothetically speaking, and we're increasing our bill, you'll see then our output will be 2,200 Rand in winter, which is going to leave you your 1,000 Rand or 1,500 Rand a month left. So you'd be happy with that. Or you wouldn't want to produce a little more power, perhaps.
I would, but
I'm leading the winter. So let's go. Solar panels are cheap. And the money's in the inverter and the battery. And so really what we want to do is we want to buy as many panels as possible and as many as we can fit. So 18 panels would produce around an average of 2.5 in winter, leaving you around 500 Rand, 800 Rand a month worth of electricity bill.
That's good.
Is that cool?
That's nice.
All right. So what we're in essence is we're trying to find here, qualify the number of panels that the client needs. And then what we're looking at is the concept of how much battery is to go with that. So typically, about what percentage of your electricity would you say that you use overnight? Answer it prior the way you answered it to me before we did.
10%.
10%. Okay. So typically what I have is clients saying they use about 10% of the power. Then I'll go through and ask them, but don't you shower? Don't you cook? Does your fridge turn off overnight? Does your DSTV turn off overnight? And things like that. And Casey, we've muted the microphone on the side. So if there's any questions, you just need to let us know, because Cherie's also taking the earphone out.
Not a problem.
And what we're trying to do is calculate the battery. So after a little bit of chatting, I'd say, well, is your fridge off overnight? Is your geyser off overnight? Is everything in your house off? So we have this concept with power that only what we turn on with our hand we're using. So we believe that while we're sleeping, we're not using power, but everything carries on running. So typically on average, I'd say to the client, we'd normally use about 30% of our power overnight, and we'd only be able to get it as low as 30% if we did load shifting. So if we used a timer device like one of these, and we used a timer like a nice app from the CBI timer, that you'd be able to then schedule your geyser to run during the day and not in the evening. So that would reduce your nighttime drawdown and allow us to minimize your battery. And we'd need your help to maintain this and to minimize your nighttime solar needs and to push as much of your power into the day. Okay. So the concept here from the battery for the client is we're going to say, okay, you need 30% of your power overnight. And you can see from that we need 13 kilowatt hours overnight. What we have is, you mentioned that you wanted power security. So about what percentage of your battery would you like to keep in reserve for not load shedding and odd power failure that may happen because of a transformer failing or the grid in your neighborhood being down for maintenance or things like that?
So what's currently, if there's no interruption, how many hours of solar will I have?
So it's a fantastic question, and it's a very, very hard question to answer. And we get asked this question a lot. So it's kind of like, well, there's a fixed amount of storage at about what rate are you going to be using it? So,
Wow.
okay, so if you can say I only use 500 watts an hour, then I could say at this with that, at 13 kilowatt hours of battery, you have 26 hours of power. If you're going to use a kilowatt an hour, we have 13 kilowatts of 13 hours. If you're going to be having a geyser and cooking and doing other things and so on and using, say, 4 kilowatts an hour, then we have 3 hours worth of power. So we have a fuel tank of X size, and it's up to you, in essence, how much it lasts, or up to your home as to what the...
Well, let's put it to you this way. I've got a little one. So if the power decides to go off overnight, I'd like to keep my house running for at least till the next day.
Yeah.
So that I know I'm safe and I can make another plan.
So so you'd like 12 hours of backup at like 6...
At like 30% of my usual usage.
Yeah.
Because that's what I use overnight.
Okay. So what I'm going to do for the purpose of calculation, and not to get too specific here because the specifics aren't so important, the concept is more important for today's class. So basically, in essence, what I'm playing with this number here is to say that we have, I've in essence allowed for 30% of the battery to be used overnight, or to be held in reserve, and batteries are 90% usable, so we have 10% that we have to leave behind, so we have to add on another 10%. So this one is actually supposed to be 1.1, and this one is 30%. So we've added, this number's actually, let me do it the other way around. So what we've got is we need 17 kilowatt hours of battery if you're going to keep 30% in reserve, and we need to add on another 10% for the portion of the battery that we can't use. So in essence, what we're chatting through with the client is, from what our analysis so far is, that we need 18 solar panels and we need around 20 kilowatt hours of battery.
Yeah.
And the concept here really is that mostly sales are done by walking into a house and saying you need 8 panels and an 8 kilowatt inverter and a 5 kilowatt hour battery or an 8 kilowatt hour battery. And the secret here is, by sizing the system correctly for the client, we obviously get happy clients that give us lots of referrals. But if we increase our turnover by 10%, we increase our business's profitability by 30%. And if we increase our turnover by 20%, we increase our business's profitability on average by 50%. So it's of great benefit to the homeowner, and it's a great benefit to us. So all other things being equal, into our year, our costs remain the same. The rent, the salaries, the car being there, the design work. And by just adding on an extra 2 panels or giving the client the right battery size, we do something fantastic for them, and we do something fantastic for ourselves. So what we see now as we're supplying a lot of installers in the market, the guys are supplying everybody the bare minimum. And by giving the clients what they actually needed and going through some education, as Casey mentioned, we increased our turnover from 6 a year to 30 a year, and then upwards and onwards from there. So the concept here also, which I'll jump through in a moment, and I'm jumping on, is that we would often send, by going through this and going through the costing of panels, which we'll get to in a moment, I'd say to the clients, the panels are cheap. So we'd always send a pallet to site. And if I ask the guy, we can fit an extra 2 or an extra 4 or an extra 8, 99 out of 100 times the client would say yes. And he would be happier because he's making more power and living in an abundance. And we'd be happier because we'd increase our basket size. So you'll see everything in the real world. You go to Woolworths or you go to ShopRite, it's about driving that basket size, about getting you to make that ad hoc purchase at the point of purchase. That's going to, you're a little happier that you got an extra bag of charcoal, and Woolworths is happier that they've increased their basket size by 10%. So this is really what we're doing. So we're analyzing from the customer size, and we're also giving them what we need, and we're giving what our company needs is to be a strong business, to be there for our clients, and to feed us and support us, that we all aren't working to death for no reason. So there's a lot of pain involved with solar. Everyone thinks it's a glorious industry. So the whole goal here is also, to reward the client with what they need, and to reward us with what we need. So what I typically do now is, we've had a look at the solar system, and I would then jump through to my phone. My phone would be a much stronger tool than using the online platform. But in essence, I'm going to just take you through and show you the concept of my house. And The concept here in accounting is the term of above the line and below the line. You know, one is good and one is bad. So in my previous inverters that I sold, the logic was opposite. So it showed good power is above the line and bad power is below the line. So I've got this term stuck in my head. But from the Fox side, it's the other way around. So what I've got is I'm a solar fanatic at home. Anything that you can pluck a solar panel on, I have it. So my challenge at home is I've got 2 houses, you know, for my wife and I and my daughter and her boyfriend. We've got a physio pool that draws 4 kilowatts continuous for 18 hours a day. We've got a thatch roof. We live behind a mountain. We're in shade. And we've got 2 electric cars, and to fill my car takes around 80 kilowatt hours. So, you know, it's sort of 2.5 days of your power consumption.
Sure.
So what I've got then is multiple inverters. So I'm not expecting anyone to be a solar fanatic, but I'm just going to show you how my home looks at the moment. So if we have a look at my house at the moment, and that's a micro inverter. So let me come back to the actual 30 kilowatt, and there it is there. Okay. So this is my home at the moment, and you can see that we are currently producing 13 kilowatts of power. And I've got this goal. My goal is zero electricity account. But remember, I'm a solar fanatic, so I'm prepared to spend the extra fanatical amount. And 0 power interruptions. And then I've added on 0 fuel, 0 water, 0 food, and blah, 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 fish base. But let's just talk about power at the moment. So what I'm doing is, and it's not applicable for most people, for 99% of homes can't have solar on the scale for the export to recover the fees. But you can see that my home is basically, the batteries are being charged, my load is being fed. I've got a second inverter feeding also power into my home, and I'm still exporting 9 kilowatts of power to the grid. So what's really, really interesting for me is if I go here and I go and have a look at the main thing of what we're trying to look at, the whole point of solar, apart from the solar security, is to show how my power draw from the grid. So in this case, you can see that basically I've got at some point, and these are technical draws because your inverter always has to draw a little bit of power from the grid to avoid export mostly. So at one stage for a minute or 30 seconds or however long, we drew a whole 370 watts from the grid. So if I have a look at yesterday, just to give you a look at how it looks over a 24-hour period, you would have a look here, and I'll take off all the other little bits, and you can see then my grid consumption over a 24-hour period. And if I zoom in, you'll get a closer look of how it looks. So this looks like a lot, but in essence, this is 4 LED bulbs that are being drawn periodically from the grid every now and again.
Okay.
So that is really what solar can do for you. And this is, as I mentioned, the solar salesman months. These are the periods of huge amounts of solar abundance. But if I go back to August, you know, I'm not going to be so vincut, excuse my language. Then if you have a look at my grid, it might have been completely different. And that is the solar winter that we're going to have a look at. And you can see my grid consumption here. This might have been a whiteout Cape Town day. Then I would have been drawing a truckload of power from the grid. And you can see here during the sun must have come out at around 11:30 until, you know, I would have had some stored battery power. Then for this portion of the day is when I managed to run off my own power. So this is the goal of having as many solar panels as you can. And that's why I now have all these micro inverters, because it allows me to put panels all over the place, on my chicken shed, on my garden shed, on any, and I've even got a solar fence at the moment, and I'm building a new solar fence so I can pluck up panels anywhere because they're cheaper. Solar panels at the moment are cheaper than a wooden fence. So I had a quote for a wooden fence. It was around 3,500 Rand a running meter for a wooden fence to be installed. And panels are around 1,500 Rand per running meter. So they are just greatly, and they're making me money, and they look prettier in my opinion. Okay, so the next thing that I just wanted to chat about is that it's easier to save power than to make power.
Okay.
Okay, so it's cheaper to make to save power. And remember, if you're saving power, you're going to save it on a cloudy day as well as in a sunny day. So there's a couple of very easy things that we can do to save power in our home. So if I asked you, get a bit more personal, about how long do you shower for normally in a...
Well, 15 to 20 minutes.
So you shower for, I'm going to be kind and say sometimes you do 20 minutes, but let's be conservative and say that you mentioned it's you and your son.
And my mom.
And your mom. So there's 3 of you in the house. So what you can see here is the real concept here is, is that a medium-sized shower head that I noticed we had while we walked around draws around 16 liters a minute. So in essence, what we have here is a rough calculator to work out. Then you're spending around 1,100 Rand a month on heating your water for you guys to shower, and that this is a conservative estimate, and around 13,000 Rand a year to basically shower. So what happened for me personally was in the early days of solar was around 6,000 Rand a watt, and I needed to save every single ounce of power that I could find, because to put up panels was hellishly expensive. So I went and bought some flow restrictors, and the flow restrictors do a wonderful thing. You can choose whatever size you want, and you get them in different sizes of plastic that you put in line with your shower head. And it's wonderful. You can reduce your flow rate down to around 4 liters a minute. And if we just jump over here and change your shower head to a small flow restrictor, which is basically, no, let's go larger, because the larger restrictor that you put in is going to reduce the flow rate. And I want to manually override it because I can't see the flow rate here. Anyway, the idea with the flow rate here is with the flow rate, you can get your flow rate down to about 4 liters a minute. So let me just do a manual override and see if I get around 4 liters. So by putting in a flow restrictor and you shower at a slow rate, we're going to bring your monthly cost of heating water to around 300 Rand a month.
And then I'm going to shower in how much water?
Yeah, you're going to have to wash your hair once a week and take...
No.
So that's exactly what my family did, is I installed these, and they had an absolute hissy fit. So I jumped online and I searched around, and I found something from this company called Oxygenics, and I'm just going to jump over to Oxygenics. And Oxygenics have got these shower heads, and what they do is they add, and yes, this is not what my wife looked like at the time, but you know, we can always dream. And what the Oxygenics head is doing is it's mixing oxygen with the water. It's got a patented thing. I'm just trying to find it in the video here, that adds air to the water, so you get all the pressure that you want to get your hair dry, washed, and it brings us down to 9 liters a minute. So let me just go Oxygenics medium, and I've overridden this, so I'm just going to put it back. So I'm not so interested in the money saving particularly here, but what I'm looking for is a kilowatt hour per day saving. Okay. So I noticed that you've got a pool pump, and you're not running it. From what I see, your pool looks terrible.
Like a fish pond.
So if you were running it, I would introduce you to the concept of a variable speed or a permanent magnet motor. So typically, if you were running your pool pump for 8 hours a day, and it was a pool pump drawing, it was a kilowatt pump, it's going to cost you around 30. There's something wrong with this formula, Casey, someone's buggered it up, but anyway, this is monthly cost times 30. Sorry. Okay, it's going to cost you around 1,000 Rand a month to run it, and this one is times 12. So around 11,000 Rand a month to run your pool pump for 8 hours a day. So if you use a constant speed or a variable speed a pool pump that just looks like a normal pool pump, it's going to draw 80% less power. And the concept here is that when we were at school and we made magnets, you're creating an electromagnet. So 80% of the electricity is to create the magnet, to energize the coil to make a magnet. And I'm not going to go through that here. And the other 20-30% is to move the pump. So by using a permanent magnet pump, we can bring your monthly cost to run your pool pump down to about 240 Rand while moving the same water. And this is running it at 9 hours a day instead of 8, because you mentioned you wanted a clean pump.
Yeah.
So if you were running your pool at the moment, this would give us an additional 5 kilowatt hours saving. And the point here really is what we're doing is what I'd normally doing is if I was sitting with the client, I would now be moving to his side of the table. I would be going, okay, we've got a 26 or a 40, let's just go back to 10 panels, which was related to, sorry, not there, go here. In essence, we've got a 24 kilowatt hour problem that we're trying to solve. And by changing your shower head, we're going to reduce that problem by 4 kilowatt hours a day. So in essence, what we're trying to do then is only produce 24 kilowatt hours a day on average throughout the year, but in winter, 30 to 40% less. So if I come down here to winter, and it's going to decrease the size of the system that we need to install by changing your shower head.
Wow.
Or it's just going to, by using the same system, it's going to allow you to have abundant power, which is what you mentioned. Okay. So what I then do is jump onto, normally I'd have my drone shot, and in this case, I would use my drone shot in conjunction with a city map viewer. And in Johannesburg, I understand there's a Johannesburg map viewer. So the map viewer is really important. And while that takes a bit of time to load, I'm going to show you something else. So what I would be doing, and this is the concept for the drone shot, and this is part of the workshop around here, is in essence, these are the drone shots that I took with the client. Then we would workshop it. Now what we're going to be doing together, and it would be a bit easier with me with an iPad and a pen than a mouse in my hand. And then as part of the proposal, we would then be giving the client the mock-up. So you can see the mock-ups here on the left, and the installation is on the right. So you can see for this client, it's sustainable in Cape Town. And basically this was the original 4, we added on more and so on. So that should have given me time for this to load. Perfect. So if I can just get your address, please. Okay. So let's just go imagery. Okay, so this is your house here. So what we can see from Cherie's house is that she has what we have an east-west roof. And typically the perception out there in the world is that north-facing solar is best. And so 80% of my panels in my house are on a south-sloping roof. The only tin roofs that I have are facing south. The main portion of my house being thatch is north facing, that I can't put any panels on. So I've just got a little bit of research just to show you the difference between north and east and west. And the main benefit of east facing and west facing solar panels is that the sun comes up over there, and these panels are now pointing at the sun. So they get you get off battery and onto panels 2 hours earlier. And when the sun is setting over there, we basically stay on solar for 2 hours long. And we've got use it or lose it power. You guys can explain that concept to your clients. And with use it or lose it power, there's going to be, when you're not using the power during the day and the batteries are full, you're then going to be wasting or throwing that power away. So really what we're looking for is power for longer, not peak power. So boys want to go super fast. We don't want to be the hare, we want to be the turtle, and we want to run longer during the day, or the tortoise. So what you can see here, which surprised me, is that this is our north array that we looked out at with 10 kilowatts of PV, making 18,000 kilowatt hours a year for north-facing panels at a 5-degree tilt angle in an unshaded roof. And here we have the same example, just changing the orientation to east on the compass here. It's basically 17,720 kilowatt hours a year. So it's virtually the same as far as a residential system goes. We go west, the results are similar. And what really got me is we found lots of east-west clients. If I found an east-west client, we'd always win the deal, just by going through client with this. But what got me is I ran these numbers here, and for my own example of a southeast facing roof at home on a garage at a negative 5-degree tilt angle facing south, it was barely any difference for me, this 18,400 or 17,200. It is going to make a bigger impact in winter. This is an average over the year. So you can see, obviously, in winter, we're going to be hammered regardless. And you'll see here, the candles are going to be shorter in winter. So ideally, in a perfect world, we want our panels north-facing at a 60-degree tilt angle in winter, which is not practical. So let's come and have a look at your house. And so just try and get that in the center of the screen and zoom in a little. So what you've got here is a solar heaven case study for PV. You've got a north-northeast facing roof and a south-southwest facing roof. And by just using the little tools here that the City of Cape Town provide us, and mostly they use these so that they can charge us more rates, not to help us, but in this case, we're going to use them for a change to help us. We can see that we've got a 14-meter roof cord there. And if we have a look at the width of your roof, you'll see that it's really nice at 4.6 meters there. So you could fit a 2.3 meter long panel down here in the middle. And apart from this hip roof here, you could fit 14 of them on this side and X number on that side. And that would be, so this would be our evening facing power. This would be our morning facing power. And then by doing that, if we come back to our sheet, we needed around 16 to 18 panels. So plenty of roof space available for you there. So let me just, in essence, just to put that into your mind's eye, I would normally just have my iPad and now I'd be working on the drone shot. And the drone shot is important for another reason that I'll come back to in a moment. So then we'll start drawing the panels on the client's roof. And excuse my bad drawing here, but you get the gist of it. So we've got panels all the way along here, like so, and no panel there, and like so. Bigger box will be easier for me to draw here and make it panels. Okay, so in essence, you have more than enough roof space to meet your energy requirements.
Okay.
So compared to me, it's a solar heaven case. It's east-ish, west-ish, which makes virtually no difference. There's not a tree in sight. There's not a mountain in sight. It looks really fantastic.
But I've got a concern.
And clients are always difficult. So what is the problem?
So I don't want my solar to face the road because I'm worried that people will see it and target my house.
Target it in what way? Sorry.
Like break in or steal my solar or whatever.
Okay, so this is typically what we have is we have this problem with people not wanting to either see their panels. Cherie's one, when I did it with her, was interesting from a security perspective. So now I need to go to plan B. So I'm now looking for alternate roof space. And I see you've got this pool heating here. So would you be happy that we move that pool heating, say, from here to here? Pool heating is not sensitive on location at all. So let's jump back to the city map view and measure that and just see what alternative roof space we have. So if I just take a quick squiz at that one, I can see you've got a bright chimney there, so we don't want to go anywhere close to that. So that is a good 6 meters. And this roof space here is another, so in essence, we could fit 5 panels on this roof quite easily and 14 panels this way. Since you don't want to use your best roof and you're giving me a hard time, I wouldn't normally say that to the client, but I'm just giving Cherie a hard time. In essence, we could place panels here. And so now we'd start on our drawing and we'd start placing the panels. And this is important. There's a concept called the forever now concept, the concept that the estate agents really love to use, and I'll loop back to it in a short bit. But in essence, what we're already doing is we're creating the panels in the client's mind's eye and in their subconscious. And once we combine this workshop with the final mock-up, then let's just jump onto here. Then in essence, we are in the client's mind, there's a forever now concept and it's already happened. So, and we can't tell the difference between what our subconscious mind thinks and what so if you're sleeping and dreaming at night and you're falling out of bed and this is not for you, this is for just from a psychological perspective, you wake up with just as much fright as if you were falling in real life. So by creating the concept, we're already, and when we do it so here you've got it in a non-real form, but as soon as we do it in a real form, then we've already created the project. So in the customer's mind and their subconscious, this project has already happened. The forever now concept it's already happened. And once it's already happened, then now it's just up to us to actually make it happen. So all of these projects basically turned into installations. So once we'd got to this stage and the client had a perfect mock-up, then every single one of these turned into a project. And as you see, that the type of mock-up means that you can't really tell the difference between the actual solar panel and the mock-up. The closer it is, the more the client is going to have that concept in their mind. Okay, so we're now jumping along and we're coming through to the part of what shell we actually install in your home. So we've pre-prepared some, normally would have these templatized single phase options. So we have 3 options for you at the moment. So we've got a 5 kilowatt inverter, which means that in essence, it's got 2 lanes, so we can have 2 orientations of solar. So on your application, we've got the flat roof lane A and the southeast facing roof lane B. And it can fit up to 14 solar panels. Yeah. So you need 16 to 18. And it will provide us power security, but during load shedding, you will basically be able to run your house and typically 1 high load appliance. So if it was Sunday night and you were watching movies on Mnet, if anyone still does that, and you wanted to make snacks for your family, you'd run the popcorn machine, then you'd run the kettle, then you'd run the toaster, then you'd run the microwave. Okay. If you ran more than one at a time, you're under risk of using more power than what the system can deliver, and it can fall over. The same way Eskom's grid's falling over when we pull too much power from it. So on our second option, and we've got and these are not relevant. On our second option here, we've got an 8 kilowatt inverter. It's got 3 lanes, so we can support an additional lane should you want to upgrade your solar. Should your security become no longer a concern and you wanted to add panels onto that other roof, or somebody moves in, or your power needs at home change, you would then be able to add additional panels there. It also supports more panels, so it can support up to 24 solar panels, and and when you're doing your popcorn and everything, you'll be able to run 3 high load appliances at the same time. So you'll be able to have the kettle, toaster, and microwave running simultaneously, plus your house. Okay. So then on our third option here, we've got some more panels, and we've got a 10.5 kilowatt inverter. During load shedding, you'll be able to run everything. You wouldn't notice the difference between the power being on and the power being off. And it's got 4 lanes, so you could expand your solar to your heart's content if your circumstances, or you become a solar addict like me, things change. So it allows you a major amount of upgrading, and it supports up to 30 solar panels. So what we've got then is on our first option, I've skimped a little bit and put 12 solar panels on and 1 battery. But in this case, we said we need 2 because each battery is 10 kilowatt hours. So, but I'm just going to leave that option like that because you have the choice to upgrade it later. Or we could just put it in there now. So you'll see it will change our number to 167. On our second option, if we put in 16 panels, so you needed 16 to 18 roughly, and we change it to 2 batteries, we're then going to be at 189. And on our third option, we basically, if I'm just going to put the panels the same and change the battery, you can see then there's 2 inverters here. Then you can see that we're at 191.
Okay.
So these are our options. So typically when I started with Cherie, she thought she needed a 5 kilowatt and a 5 kilowatt hour battery.
Yeah.
By going through the process, you've realized you need?
Well, a bunch of more panels and yeah, at least 20, well, I'd say between 18 and 20 panels.
18 and 20 panels.
Then definitely an 8 kilowatt inverter.
Okay.
And more battery.
And more battery. Okay, so now we've ruled out option 1 and we're looking at option 2. So we can say change this guy to 18 panels because you wanted to live in an abundance of power. We're going to use the app to educate your clients, like the nice one that I showed, your customer, your family. And so we've now, and if we add 18 panels here, and you'll see then panels are relatively, they are so cheap at the moment. If we change the amount from 16 to 18 panels, let's just have a look at how the total changes. So it goes from 191 to 196.
Yeah.
Okay, so in essence, we've got 2 options available for you. I'll just try and zoom out so everyone can see on the screen. Then those are our 2 options that we have available.
So the totals there is 194
and 196.
196. So then it's a no-brainer to take the third option.
The option 3.
Yeah.
Well, that is absolutely fantastic. So what I'm also just going to talk about is that in a lot of cases, there is, I'll give you a high five for that. Looking forward to being empowered by the sun. But if Casey, are you listening to the audio? If there's any questions, because we can't hear anyone, just put your earphone
Listening
in.
to the audio, no questions, and sound is perfect.
So is it all good? No questions so far at the moment. You've just muted your mic again, Casey.
No questions so far?
Okay.
No questions.
No questions. Okay, cool. So what we're just going to chat about is that there's always some form of objection. And what we're looking for is, like for SuperSize your sales, is we're looking for one silver bullet that's going to change everything. And life is messy and it's not like that. So often there's another quote on the table. And so whatever it is, the other guy, the person's going to say, but you have another quote. So just pretend like you have another quote for me.
Yeah.
And say it's cheaper.
It is definitely cheaper.
But
it's also not the same amounts. It's like a 5 kilowatt.
Yeah.
So now you've educated me.
Okay. But typically if the client pulls out another quotation, which they're going to do, and they're going to go, but I'm also getting a 10 kilowatt inverter from the other guy for 175 or whatever the case may be, I'm going to then look for 2 or 3 differentiators. So I would just ask the client, well, what type of solar panels there are, and he's not going to know, then maybe he'll pull out the quote and we'll have a look at it. A lot of quotes just say solar panel 550 watt and they don't say anything. And then what I would do is I'd speak to the client and show some differentiators. So if you just grab, Casey, can you bring my solar tile, please? Yeah. I would have my solar tile with me and I'd show the client and get their hands to feel the difference between a glass on glass panel and a glass on laminate, and explain the decay rate of laminated panels being at 4% a year versus glass panels that decay at 0.4% of a year. And they typically just show a case study sort of South Africa's largest solar farm installed in 2017. And by 2020, 80% of the panels had delaminated already. They were ground mounted. They have a harder time being ground mounted than roof mounted. But typically the research shows that laminated panels will fail. By 12 years, 80% of them will fail is what the market shows. So my little party trick was to run around with this thing in case he's going to help me. And I'd get the client to and obviously I'd go through it and say, obviously as customers, we're all focused on the side that we can see, but every industry has a nasty underside that we don't want to talk about, and our industry is nasty underside. And a lot of people install these. I'm not trying to push down on them. I'm in a competitive environment. I'm trying to find a differentiator. So by just getting the client to touch the back of this solar panel and getting them to feel it in their hand, Cherie can be our case study, and getting them to focus on the front of this solar panel and touch the back of this one, then they'd go, well, I don't want the other solar panels. Your hands would tell you the difference. And then I would also just mention on the battery front, there would be a quote on ABC batteries. So I would ask them, are they aware that they have to pay a 15% energy tax on that other battery? And that would get them to sit up straight in their dining room chair. And they'd mean, what do you mean I have to pay tax on my battery? And then I'd explain the concept of round trip efficiency, that typically on a 48-volt system, it takes around 7.5% energy loss to get the power in, and around the same to get the power out. A lot of, at that stage, and probably still at the moment, a lot of lower voltage batteries have an 80% depth of discharge, which means you can't use the bottom 2 kilowatt hours. So in essence, you're losing 3.5 kilowatt hours in your battery. The batteries that we would be providing would be 90% usable, and they'd have a 3 to 5% round trip efficiency. So in essence, a 3 to 5% tax and 10% more usable, which basically means, and I have another sheet and show them, and another video that we'll share with you guys after this, that would show you that by using our battery, you're going to get 30% more energy than the other 10 kilowatt hour, the other 20 kilowatt hour battery. And once I went through that with the client, typically price was no longer an issue. The education was important, and what we've in essence done is we've embraced a whole bunch of concepts. So let me run through what those concepts are. So we've been running through different things along the way here, and the point here of the shower head and the pool pump, and in those days when I was doing it, it was lighting, you know, LEDs were huge, is when I was coming to the client, in essence, I was sitting opposite the table from him. It was him against me. So him wanting a system and checking me out and not sure whether he wanted to use us or not. And then by identifying the problem and writing it on a big piece of paper in front of him, the 26 kilowatt hours, and then saying, well, if we install one of these and if we do one of those, which are beneficial for them anyway and reduces your rates and your water and your sewage and all sorts of other things, it then changed it to we've got it, and the word we've got a 24 kilowatt hour problem changes the narrative, and it builds trust with the client immediately that you're now moved from the other side of the dining room table. And it's always very important to sit not opposite but perpendicular. So if he's sitting at the head, to choose a side, you know, normally the client is going to sit at the head, so that you're now on the same side of the table with him, trying to solve the problem, on the same side trying to provide him an upgrade option. If he needs a budget option and he wants to take the 8 kilowatt now, that's and that's really the purpose. And the other part is the needs analysis. You're going to give the client what he wants, and he's obviously going to provide us a lot more referrals, and referrals are our goal portion. So the concept here really is a concept from Brian Tracy, and there is a book called The Psychology of Sales, and it's the question approach. So typically I'm in distribution now, and I fall into the trap of not doing the question approach. You walk in here and I want to hammer my product down your throat because it's got 4 lanes as opposed to 2 lanes and whatever the case may be. But by using the question approach, we've identified the client's needs, and we've built further trust and rapport. So if you go and deal with any professional person, a doctor or a lawyer or accountant, they will ask you some questions. So what's your blood pressure? What's this? Let's investigate that. And by doing that, you're building trust with the client. And the main thing as well with the question approach is that's the base level that we've been running through. And then there's the secondary level of the question approach. And I'd highly recommend that you read Brian Tracy's book on this. It's helped me a lot. I've used it well with end users. I still struggle to use it in a business-to-business environment. Is the question approach then is to always try and answer a question with a question. And it sounds a bit like you're being difficult, but say for instance we were selling training, and the customer would then ask me, and a lot of times people just ask the question not knowing what the answer it is that they want. They just asking the question, and after you've answered, they will run, your brain runs a pass-fail formula, and you pass or fail the client or the tenderer or your business potential supplier on that. So the question would be, well, how many trainers have you got? Or for instance, if they ask us, well, how many support staff does MSPD Africa have? And if I gave them the answer 2, then you may look at us and go, gee, that's terrible. How can you only have 2 support staff? And it's a fail question. You're not going to want to do business with us. So it's really to say that's really interesting that you're an installer that's interested, say, in support and supporting your clients. It's a fantastic approach. 100 wholeheartedly 100% agree with that. And that's really important to reflect the client's question back to them, to show them that you've heard. And these are the details. If you go through Brian Tracy's book, I listen to it on audiobooks, on the way to work. It helps me to reflect that question back to the client. And by doing that, we further building rapport and trust. And then to ask them, well, what are you looking for in technical support? And then ask 3 or 4 more questions. And then by the end of it, I say, well, and when he says, well, my main problem, and we drill down to it, is I have guys on site and they're struggling with X, Y, and Z. And I have to put my questions into a WhatsApp group and, and share my luggage out in public. And then basically, I might get an answer or might not, or whatever the case may be. And then now I've fully understood the question, and now I can answer. Now I can be a bit silly and say, actually, we have 2 dedicated people who deal with you one-on-one. There's and these guys were solar installers before for 7, 8 years. They've experienced your pain on your side of the table, and to add to that, we've got a portal and blah, 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 fish-based. So it's important when a client asks you a question, and it's specific, he may not know what he wants the answer to be, but it's a pass-fail question. How many installs have you done? And you just started out and you say 2. Well, then, it's a pass-fail. You could answer, what are you looking for an installer? Blah, 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 fish-based. And in my case, when we had 2 installations, I'd go, well, that's fantastic. I'm a self-empowerment fanatic. I've had solar at my house since whatever the date was, and I've been helping my friends out, in a number of cases. And in essence, then the answer is going to, by further answering the question, you're going to give the client the answer. And so answer a question with a question by first reflecting the client's question to him, and then drilling down. So the question approach is the biggest thing. So if anything I can recommend from today, read or listen to that book. He has really, really helped me and transformed and changed my life and changed our business. The second point is, you would have noticed, we're Fox fanatics, but we didn't mention the word Fox to Cherie once. So we used to import another brand of inverter prior to this, and I never ever told the client about the brand, where it came from, how many there were in the country, or whatever the other things that we do at the moment. I would just basically use myself as the case study, showing that I believed in what we used, and I'm showing the results. And in essence, it's a dream that we're selling. So Cherie may have looked at that line, and I don't know if you thought, well, gee, I'd like my house to...
I love it.
You'd like your house to look like that.
Yeah.
So it's the dream. So use yourself as a case study, or your local school that you've supplied a system to, or whatever. The dream is important, not the product in this approach. The product comes into differentiation to show your education and your level of experience. You guys have been all doing this for a long time. Each one of the things that you're selling has some benefit over whatever the other guy is doing. You're going to use that benefit at that point. So then what we're doing is we're using a concept called the Forever Now concept. And we will, in the PDF we send you, we will link the books where these are coming from. And this is creating it, as I mentioned, the mock-up, creating it in your mind's eye. So, and then the deal's already done. And what I'd notice is, after doing that, if the client said to me, well, where do you think we could put it? Then I put all this away in my back pocket, because as soon as he asks, do you think it will fit here, or where in the house do you think it should go, then I know the deal's done. We've packed this and wrapped it. So then I'm not going to be doing anything anymore. I'm now pivoting. And typically what I'd be doing is sitting in the driveway or just drive 10 minutes down the street, and I'd send the client the results of our workshop, this little spreadsheet, and our budgetary costing, and our little draft mock-up. And then at the office or in the evenings, in the early days, I'd be doing the mock-up, and then I was lucky enough to build a team around me that were doing, mock-ups like crazy. So the Forever Now concept combined with the responsiveness. And then the next thing that we've been using is the decoy effect. And we had a little laugh when I started looking at this. We sell the 8 and the 10. The 8 and the 10 are so similarly priced that the 8 is the decoy. So we get decoyed all the time. We just don't know it. So we have, in essence, we go to the movies, and then when we were still doing that, there was a small, medium, and large popcorn. And by having the small over here and the medium and the large close to each other, we associate value with the large. McDonald's does it with supersizing, and Apple and Samsung, and everyone, when we're doing it, you're buying an air conditioning system or anything, you'll be presented 3 options. The small and the medium are typically the decoy, or the clients, they might have a lot of stock of the medium. They would then shift the price of the large and push it way out and move the mediums closer to the small. The decoy works really well at shifting clients. 8 panels, 10 panels, 12 panels, 14 panels, 8 kilowatt inverter, 10, 5, 8, whatever it is. But we didn't fiddle with these numbers. They just happened to work that way. And I didn't realize that I'd been using the decoy effect for years without even knowing it. But my medium and large were always close to each other. And then by the client assessment, by asking the questions, the client realized, well, the small wasn't going to work for them. But all they were wanting to buy was the small, hence the increase in turnover for our company. I mean, happy solar power at that time, and exceptionally happy clients, because they moved from power shortage to an abundance of power where they can run their pool, etc., etc. So we're then going to jump onto the next concept, and I'm overwhelming you a bit, and it sounds like a lot of work, and you've just got to find a place to start. But the main place that we are doing business is, if you're looking for something we all know, we jump on our phone and we type into what place?
Google.
Google. We jump onto Google, and so this is my latest. I'm selling my dream story with my solar wall, which has worked really, really well for this. We have about 6,000 micros on order just from selling this dream as we speak. So what we're talking about is, when you're looking to make a purchase, you're looking to see that the customer has done it before. So a lot of us are focusing on Facebook or maybe Instagram, but the first place that the customer is going to look at you is on your Google for Business profile. So it's, when we were doing this, I spent very little energy on my Google for Business profile, and then I started following someone on YouTube, a search engine guy, and he started showing me how that if you use Facebook to try and improve your rankings with inbound links, Google doesn't like Facebook, so they give you a negative score. But if you use Google's update posts, then you will get a positive score from Google. So what we do then, if I type in MSPD Africa here, none of you guys may be seeing it, but we will be doing updates on Google as well for that, to help improve our ranking. And more importantly, when a client clicks on us, he's going to have a look at reviews, and he's going to have a look at photos. So the photos are going to show that we've done it before. So a lot of you guys will have photos of buildings and trucks and whatever the case may be, or a lot of people that we had a look at have fantastic buildings and trucks, but they're not showing them here. So the main thing, the first low-hanging fruit, is to work on your Google for Business profile. So so that would be step 1 in demonstrating of what you're doing something before. But there's a second concept around that, and that's called edification. So I worked at a large corporation. It had some 220,000 salespeople. And from that, I went on edification training. And I didn't know what edification meant. But in essence, we've done it here today. So Mark jumps onto the call and he says, I'm so cool and I've sold blah, 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 this amount of solar systems and I ran so many teams and blah, 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 fish base. Or Casey jumped on and edified Mark and said, he's a cool guy and this is what I found. And so what we did in our life is we were going to a lot of conferences and having a lot of events. We would pick a key point for each person and say, that guy's a fantastic database developer. So when you're walking around the room, edify Frikkie as a database developer, edify Megan, if she's on the call, as someone who will drop dead to support you till the cows come home, and whatever each characteristic is. And then when I was at Saf Marine or IBM, or Woolworths or wherever, or Standard Bank, and they were looking for a database guy, and I said, well, use Frikkie, the edification would work. But in these days, we're not going to conferences and the like. We're standing with a client, and the client often says, oh, you guys have done a fantastic system. Your system looks really neat. I'm very happy, or whatever the case may be. So then just get him to edify you, pick up your phone and make a quick video. Just hold up your phone and say, do you mind saying that again? And in essence, your client's edifying you is the cherry on top here. So in every proposal that we did to a client, there would have been some edification videos at the top. So you can see then we put some samples in here that when we were still end user facing, these ones were end user facing. Now I've gone with some of our installers and the customer said something. Then I've gone and asked the client to quickly say that. And that's really, really the goal. So what they're getting is when they jump onto your profile, they're getting some interactive reviews. If the guy has said that, just ask him to give you a review at that point. And then there's a new concept that has come out that if you have a 5-star review, then your company is suspicious and your reviews are no good. So it's actually, better to have like here a 4.6, which means you're actually in the real world. And what's important here is for there to be a response from the owner when things go wrong. And so you'll quickly skim down here, and this is all going to give you trust in that supplier and enable you to move that money over. So my 2 cents worth is read the Brian Tracy book and have a look at your Google for Business profile, give some focus on it. This is the first place we're looking at. And if you can include some videos in here or some videos in YouTube, they would be fantastic. What I've come across, and this is just a trap that I've fallen into lately, is that we focus heavily on Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn. And in those cases, they are in essence I'm calling them the equivalent of a newspaper. They're today's news and they come and they go. But when a client's looking for proof of someone to do it or edification, they're going to the library. And YouTube, even though it's not so trendy or sexy in the moment, it's the library. So what I look back in is we've made a lot more videos these days because I'm spending less time driving from customer to customer. It wasn't very many videos that carried us in the day. It was 3 or 4. I used them over and over and over again. Sorry, I'm just trying to view our channel. And I was, it's not, switch account. They're on the wrong, let's jump across to another. But anyway, you get the gist of it. Shoot a few videos, it's like gold, ask some questions, it's like gold. So these are the concepts that are used. Some of them came from books, some of them came from by accident, but 3 or 4 of these to go with your customers' quotations would do a fantastic job. And often I'd get a bit more brazen. So this guy said, well, he's happy cooking off his inverter in the thing that I filmed. So I asked him, do you mind going to the kitchen and just posing for me? And so get a kick out of honoring them. They will give us more. So So this is the guy saying his thing. Nice to use your drone. You know, these days we have this tech around. And then and this one was nice. It was a little personal because he was cooking. I'm just trying to find where the cooking was. Here it is. So it was a nice shot, and he looks all happy. You know, there we go. So that sort of carries the day. So I'm just going to wrap it up there. And I'm going to just, does anyone want to ask any questions? I'm going to plug in those earphones that I could just answer anything.
Johan had a question earlier.
Sorry, say again, Casey?
Johan raised his hand. Johan, do you have a question?
Hi, Mark. Johan here from Trust Solar. Yeah, I just wanted to know.
Hi, Johan.
Sorry, man, I was driving, so I missed a bit of it watching you driving. Yeah, I just wanted to know, can we get hold of that spreadsheet type of thing, or is it? Are you going to send it out, or is it on your portal?
So we're going to share it with you.
Okay, on email.
On email and this presentation as well.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Johan.
Does
All
anyone
very
else
quiet
have
out
some
there.
questions? Hi, Megan.
I
You
can
raised
hear
your
you,
hand?
Megan.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Mark. Thanks for holding the session. I know I'm on the MSPD side, but I really learned a lot, and I'm sure the guys that we're supporting up here in Joburg and KZN and all 40 of them on this call, which I'm very happy to see, have really enjoyed the session. So I just want to thank you. I've really enjoyed it. The one thing I do need to touch base with you on is round trip efficiency, but I know you have shared a video on that. A lot of our guys ask me that, and I'm not 100% sure on it. So that 15% tax and the round trip efficiency is something that I must chat to you about more. So thanks for that.
Great. No, we'll share the video on that and share it with everyone. It's a rough cut in a draft. We keep threatening to redo it, but it works. Yeah. The energy tax. No one likes to pay tax. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, fantastic. Well, thank you, guys. We'll wrap it up there, and we'll continue to developing this and adding to it. You know.
Thank you, everyone, so much for joining, and we will pop you through the presentation and the Mark's awesome spreadsheet when we're done.
Thank you, guys.
Hope everyone has a fantastic day further.
It was extremely insightful, guys. Thank you very much. Extremely insightful.
Really appreciate the feedback.
Thanks. I wanted to ask something, Mark, if you don't mind. Could you expand
No
on
problem.
the 12B tax break just further? Because I read about it, but I really would like to hear from the way that you explain things, because you put things like a professor, very easy. It's a little bit complex for me to explain to clients sometimes.
So I'd like there's two wonderful factors here.
Okay.
The first is that most people don't know that South Africa had street lights before London and New York. So we had the first electrified city. So the mayor of Cape Town bought a hydroelectric plant and electrified the city of Cape Town in sort of 1899 or 1903 or somewhere around there. So I'd always show clients pictures of that generation station and the pipe track and things like that. And the second is that South Africa wrote the world's first renewable encouragement laws before the rest of the world even understood the word renewable. So in 1962, 3 and 4, we passed the first renewable encouragement law that started the basis for Section 12B. And that developed into a 50, 30, 20% tax break. So normally if you buy a car, you're doing a 20, 20, 20 per year. So you have to depreciate it over 5 years. So earlier you can depreciate the first 50% in the first year, the next 30 in the second year, and the 20 in the third year. But what they then did a few years ago is they changed it to 100% in year 1. So we'd always have booming February sales because everybody wanted an invoice from us, whether the products were installed or not. They just wanted the invoice for their tax year.
Yeah.
It's the easiest way to get away from paying tax. And then a couple of years ago, they said they'll give you 125%. So they'd give you more than the value of the purchase. And I think it still has 1 year to run. I may be wrong on the 125%. So you're going to get a greater depreciation in the value of the product. So what I do for clients is I'd say we'd have a kilowatt hour saving.
Yeah.
And then we'd have depreciation saving. And at that stage, solar was a lot more expensive, which meant you got 50% of your money back in your first trip around the sun. And now what we're doing is we're combining the next level, and it's probably a whole nother session on its own, is we're combining Section 12B, the energy kilowatt hour saving, then adding on time of use saving and peak load shaving combined. And we have around a 6 to 8 month cost neutral installation. So that has put our 30 kilowatt on steroids at the moment, and we've increased our sales by about 6 times the past month and a half since I've been running through clients with that. Because the time of use and energy and peak load shaving, are greater savings than the kilowatt hours. Does it help?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. I literally thought you were going to continue, but I get the gist of it. Thank you very much.
No, cool. So I'm trying to get Fox to get us. Normally, we want the generator to turn on when the power goes off and our batteries get flat. So what I'm trying to do is now get them to trigger the generator if we have a high load that's going to mess up our peak for the month, and also to switch off loads if our loads are getting too high. So because as soon as you go over that threshold once a month, then obviously the rest of the month doesn't count, So,
Okay.
so that's going to put our money saving solar on steroids.
Yeah, but yes.
Thank you. Thanks, Lumo. I haven't met you before. Are you in Johannesburg?
No, I'm in Cape Town. Don't know from Blue Sky Energy.
Well, you guys are famous and you've been doing solar forever.
Yes, me and James and Gordon.
I've followed and watched you guys for many years. So really, really incredible to see the work that you guys do.
Thank you very much, man. It's savings. At the end of the day, you're providing a solution for a problem.
And we're just spending some time asking the client what the problem is and what the expectations are.
Yes. The biggest problem now is cost, especially in the factories. Eskom's about to get the 38% or whatever. They also changing the meters in the city of Cape Town. They're changing the programming of the current meters, meaning it's going to be more expensive. That's basically what it means.
So I'm just going to show you what we've done for someone on that front.
Okay.
You just stop my presentation.
Yeah.
Okay, so our latest success is having no grid draw during peak periods. So you can see here,
Yeah.
there's no power coming in between 6 and 9.
Yes.
And I think on this video, I went back one day to show a full day.
Mm.
So they basically have no power draw during this peak time and this peak time, and then they're charging their batteries after 10 in the cheap rate.
Yes. Mm.
So this has put our sales on steroids. And very, very simple to implement.
Mm. Brilliant, man. Love it.
Thank you.
Love it, man. I'm just looking at this and I'm actually amazed.
It takes 2 or 3 settings and it's done. I'm just trying to supersize this by combining the switching stuff off and getting the generator to kick in as a last resort.
Okay. Mark, I'll have to bow down and thank you so much, you and your team, for this beautiful presentation. I definitely learned something out of it. I've got 11 o'clock that I have to call a client because they are in a government building. So we need permission, as you know, from the owner. The owner is government. And this has been a nightmare. I've been going up and down in Cape Town the whole time. And these guys don't rock up at the office. They don't pick up their phones either. So I'm doing this for the client because I want the sale, you know.
Goodness. Well, good luck with that.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Namaste.
Cheers. Thank you.
Yo, Ngos. Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you. I think the other guys that are on the call are not watching anymore. So we're going to wrap it up there. Wish you guys a fantastic day. Really appreciate you guys coming. And we'll be running these every 2 weeks. So until the next time. Thank you,
Thanks so
guys.
much, Mark.